Everybody, it's 7 o'clock. We're going to call the meeting to order. This is night 2 of the annual town meeting, and we're going to be opening up with Article 4, the capital budget article. The Capital Budget Committee moves that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $2,939,863 to pay for the capital outlay as shown in the chart set forth in Article 4 of the April 24, 2023 annual town meeting warrant for the purposes and in the amounts under the Capital Budget Committee recommends, column, and to meet said appropriation as follows: that the town authorize the treasurer collector, with the approval of the select board, to borrow the sum of $1,241,363 under the applicable provisions of Chapter 44 of the Massachusetts General Laws or any other enabling authority, and to issue notes and bonds for the purposes for which the funding source is listed as borrowing supported by taxes. And then the sum of $620,700 to be transferred from wastewater enterprise retained earnings, the sum of $844,250 to be transferred from water enterprise retained earnings, and the sum of $233,550 to be transferred from solid waste enterprise retained earnings for the purposes for which the funding source is listed as retained earnings for the respective departments. So before we get into calling for a recommendation from the Capital Budget Committee, there is one Scrivener's error in your Article 4, which is on page 7, starts on page 7 of the warrant, I believe, and then goes to the next couple of pages. If you look across the top, it says Department, Project Program, and then FY23 request. That should have been FY24 request. So that is done on, my warrant may be slightly different than yours. It's the next 3 pages, 4 pages, I'm sorry. So there's just, it's a 2024 request, not 2023 request. So I'm just making that as a note for everybody. Mr. Griffin, I'd like to make a report. Okay, he was going to pass. Advisory Board approval from Tom Scollins. Who has no microphone. Can we get him?
A vote of 7-0. That we can hear me now. All right, the board supports these particular expenditures by the Capital Budget Committee. The Advisory Board recommends approval of this article by a vote of 7-0.
Okay. What I'm going to do is similar to what we did last night with the budget article. I'm going to read a line. I'm not going to read the numbers. If you've got a question on any of these lines, sing out. I'll make a note. We'll come back and revisit those. This is a 2/3 vote because of the borrowing that's involved. So just so everybody knows that at the end. Article 4, Police Department, 17 new AEDs. Fire Department ambulance supplies. Question on ambulance supplies. Building Department, new Ford F-150 Lightning. Was that a question on that? Nope. Okay. Harbor Master North and South River aids to navigation and shark buoys. Harbor Master Unit 1 vessel improvements retrofit. Harbor Master Green Harbor, South River, North River infrastructure repairs. School, replace original gym wood floor and add wall pads at Daniel Webster School. School building improvements, 255 Furnace Street. School, Furnace Brook Middle School HVAC, continuation of AC project. School, resilient flooring, Daniel Webster School. DPW engineering, Old Main Street sidewalk project. DPW engineering, Willow Street bridge permitting repair and replacement.
You should only be reading the ones that have been.
I'm going to read the whole. I'm going to read all of them.
You're gonna read all.
Yes. DPW engineering, DPW permitting, Dyke Road sluiceway structure replacement. DPW highway replace number 68 Chevy. Question? Did somebody say question on that? Nope. Replace number 68 Chevy 3500 crew cab plow. DPW road reconstruction. Question. DPW replace vehicle 101. DPW purchase front-end loader with plow. DPW replace 2016 Elgin sweeper. DPW equipment maintenance, fluid system and other equipment. DPW maintenance lift with accessories. DPW ground-mounted 5910 Toro deck mower. That's for cemetery and greens. Library update kitchen. Library bathroom renovations. DPW wastewater fluid system, other equipment. DPW wastewater lifts with accessories. DPW wastewater AC unit repairs in main ops building. DPW wastewater SCADA PLC upgrades and at 8 pump stations. DPW wastewater valve upgrades. DPW wastewater mini excavator. DPW wastewater L35 mini loader. DPW wastewater septic receiving upgrades. DPW wastewater SRF wastewater collection. DPW wastewater SRF Plymouth Ave pump. DPW water fluid system and other equipment. DPW water lifts with accessories. DPW water replace pickup. DPW well cleaning and rehab. DPW meter replacement. DPW water main upgrades. DPW water purchase L350. DPW water replace pump station SCADA. DPW water generator to replace current angle drives. DPW water Old Plain Street water main replacement. DPW solid waste fluid systems and other equipment. DPW solid waste lifts and accessories. DPW solid waste electrical upgrade. DPW solid waste building repairs.
If I might, I missed raising a question with regard to the Plymouth Avenue pump station rehab.
Okay, just a moment. Which one are we talking?
It is the Plymouth Avenue pump station rehabilitation.
Plymouth Ave. Okay, so you're questioning Plymouth Ave. Okay.
Correct. On the wastewater at pump station.
Okay, I've got that. So we are questioning ambulance supplies, we're questioning road reconstruction, and we're questioning the wastewater, Plymouth Avenue pump station. Those are the three that we're questioning. So all the others, I'm going to call for a vote on the others. It's a 2/3 vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? The other ones pass. So we're going to go and now take up these in order. The first one is the ambulance supplies.
Jack Griffin, 44 Marshall Avenue. Last night, we went over this same item, and it was told it was not a capital budget. So I don't think it should be on this. I think it should be taken off.
Mr. Galvin? Mr. Maresco, are these the same ambulance supplies that we were talking about last night?
No. So, Mr. Moderator, Michael Moresco, 201 Arlington Street. The ones we talked about last night were for this fiscal year, ending on June 30th. This in here is for fiscal year 24, which begins on July 1st.
That's not the question, Mr. Moderator. The question is, it's the same items that pertain to last night's vote. It's not different items. So last night, the word was consumables. So if they're consumables, I was told they're not supposed to be capital budget, so they should be stricken off.
I get it. How do we want to play this? Okay. Town council concurs with you, and that should be taken off the capital budget list.
Thank you.
So we're not going to be voting on ambulance supplies. The next question was DPW road reconstruction for $200,000 that was not approved by the Capital Budget Committee. I have received in writing, as is appropriate, an amendment from David Carrier. I'm going to read the amendment, then let David speak to it. He would like to, instead of having recommended 0, recommend $170,000. And that would be funded from free cash that was made available from the articles that did not get passed at yesterday's STM, Article 4, and it's item 4 that was $70,000, item 5 that was $25,000, and item 6 that was $75,000, for a total of $170,000. And his amendment is that to change the amount from 0 to 170, said funds to be available for accepted town ways, paved and unpaved private ways open to the public to be expended as directed by the DPW superintendent. So it's an acceptable amendment, and Mr. Carrier, I'll let you present.
One of the things I want to point out to the town meeting is that we have significant unaccepted roadways, which, most people are aware of. Some are unpaved, they're in the minority, and a large number are paved. In relative terms, roughly 41% of our paved unaccepted roadways, that's the percentage they are of the total of the town roadways. And one can figure out that basically that represents 41% of our real estate tax revenue that flows from those residents that are along those roadways, since many of them happen to be developments. So it's appropriate for us to have some funding for planned repairs when we are notified of something before it becomes one where we actually get a declared emergency so that emergency vehicles can make it to and from, whatever emergency they have to respond to. In the case of the unpaved private ways, a portion that we were looking at last night in the special town meeting, the $70,000, basically represents about 9% of the tax revenue that we receive from the unpaved roadways, and I did not have all of them complete, and I had presented that information previously to the advisory board and to the capital budget. So I encourage town meeting to accept this amendment and put it forward, since it is free cash that was made available by the items that were eliminated from the special town meeting warrant last night.
Okay. So discussion, this is a legal amendment. Discussion on the amendment. Rear microphone.
Is the amendment to Article 4?
You need to give your name and your address.
Jack Griffin, 44 Marshall Ave. Is the amendment for Article 4?
No, the amendment is for it's Article 4, the DPW highway road reconstruction for $200,000. That's in Article 4 of this warrant.
And why do we need the amendment?
Because you recommended 0. The Capital Budget Committee recommended 0 on that, and he's amending it to ask that it be reinstituted.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Further discussion from the floor, rear microphone.
Martine Anderson, 5 Weathervane Lane. I don't know whether or not this is reconstruction or what it is, but a proprietor's way or drive or whatever it is, because there's no street sign there, kind of hard to tell what the end letters are going to be, is one of the most heavily traveled, unaccepted roads in Marshfield. It may not be this particular article. This amendment for $170,000, but it doesn't need reconstructing. What it needs is attention. All of the supplies for Roach Brothers, those big trucks come in there all day long. Produce, supplies, you know what it is. And Mia Ragazza, all of their supplies come in that particular roadway. It's the traffic light that's right at the schools, right at the Furnace Brook School. And the school buses come in there. We have children that live up on that hill. They come in the morning, and they bring the kids back at the end of the day. And the elementary schools, buses come, and They bring the kids from after school for the Boys and Girls Club.
If I could caution you there, this is being expended at the direction of the DPW superintendent. You can't specify a particular road, it's beyond the scope of this article. I suggest you have a conversation with Tom Reynolds and let them know your concerns. But it's really it's beyond the scope of the article.
Thank you. I have addressed this with the superintendent and the DPW board, and I have not heard anything back. It is, I'm sure, a concern for everybody that doesn't have an accepted street. Thank you.
Thank you. Rear microphone.
John Cusick, Vice Chair of the Board of Public Works. This amendment was discussed with the board, myself, Bob Shaughnessy, and Dave Carrier. I have a question through the moderator. How much free cash do we have available?
Mr. Maresco?
Mr. Moderator, we will take a look. We need a couple of minutes.
Yes. Anybody know any jokes? It's awful quiet in here.
What happens if the rain keeps up like this?
What?
It won't come down.
A DPW joke, no less.
He asked for a joke.
Yeah, while we're looking, I'm going to stay there, John. Lady at the rear microphone.
Yep. Bonnie McCarthy, 83 Donald Road, and on Capital Budget Board member. I just want to clarify, and I think I may misunderstood or didn't just hear it properly, Dave, Mr. Carrier. For when you spoke to the capital budget recommended 0 on one line, I know we hadn't recommended 0, we just hadn't that specific number. I just didn't know if I could get clarification on that. I think we all misheard it, so thanks. It was more me.
We did bring it before you, board, and explained it.
But-
They had presented the road articles, the
Yeah.
calculations.
But I don't
But
remember recommending 0. That's why I was just trying to find on the line.
you did not support it.
We did not support it.
Great.
Okay, that's
The
okay.
the funding was not supported at capital budget. It was not voted as supported at capital budget.
Not-
Both myself and Mr. Reynolds were there for that.
But we didn't know, so we didn't vote. Okay, so we didn't vote.
You
to-
didn't vote to support.
We didn't vote to support.
I think the vote was not to support.
But so I think we may have been passed. That's what I just
Well,
don't
I believe what
remember.
happened is that the recommendation was from town administration side for 0, and basically you supported their recommendation.
There-
That's
thank you.
typically how it
That's
works.
the clarification. Perfect. They recommended to do 0. Okay, great.
Is that it?
So just to clarify, it wasn't that we voted not to, I don't believe we voted on their specific. We took the recommendation through the
Okay.
selectmen
Don't
to
rain.
not vote for that specific
Okay.
article.
Mr. Polanski, thank you.
Keith Polinsky Advisory Board. I don't care if you vote this up or down, but I want to caution everybody, the items from last night and the items from tonight for the ambulance, those items have got to be paid for. We are going to come back in the fall at some point, and we're going to have to spend money. If you don't have supplies for the ambulance, you're going to put people at risk. So keep in mind, even though we have some free cash, it's not free, and we need it for other items. Just keep that in mind, please.
I didn't care for that.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Maresco.
after we spend $500,000 we'll have $650,000 in free cash left, of which we'll need $500,000 for pensions in the fall.
Mr. Carrier?
I'd like to
Are you
respond to Mr.
clarifying
Pol-
your amendment?
Dave Carrier, 34 Outlook Road, Chair of the Board of Public Works. I wish to respond to Mr. Polanski's statement in that $70,000 of that $170,000 was
Okay,
funding that was
that's-
going to be available for,
We're
had we
clear,
passed
we're
it.
clear on what the funding is. That's fine. You don't need to do that. Mr. Cusick, you got your number.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm for this article. We do need the money. We want to keep the roads in repair. As one of our board members mentioned, that 41% of the paved roads, they're paying 41% of the taxes. I know the people on the unpaved roads, $70,000 is a grain of sand on the beach for those people. So I urge you to vote for this. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Seeing no further questions from the floor, I'm going to call for a vote. This is a two-thirds vote. All those in favor of 170 for road reconstruction, raise your hand. All opposed? I declare that that passes by two-thirds. And our last question was on DPW wastewater, Plymouth Ave Pump Station rehab, which was requested for $8,117,000 and was recommended zero. Mr. Carrier.
Dave Carrier, 34 Outlook Road. Plymouth Avenue Pump Station is essential to the operation of our sewer system. You know, roughly 45% of the flow comes through Plymouth Avenue Pump Station. And if you're flushing your toilet at Town Hall, that's where it goes. This is essential for the safe operation of the wastewater system. And in addition to that, we are dealing with a situation where we have two areas which have been looked at back in 2015 that would be added to the sewer system. We have the capacity to take in another $1.3 million roughly. And, you know, one would be Kent Park, which would have to cross and definitely have to connect into Plymouth Avenue Pump Station in the future. And the other is in the Black Mountain area, particularly concentrating on the newer build-out. They were over an acre and plus. So I see this as an essential item to be able to move forward with the sewer system in the future. And I would recommend that we authorize the necessary borrowing to go with the SRF, because with the SRF, the bulk of the money is coming at the same time also to allow us to commingle opera funds with it.
It's beyond the scope of the article. People were warned, the idea of the warrant, it's a warning. So people were warned that that article was in there for $8,100,000 and change at zero. So you can't now put that forward. It's too much of a move to do that. Oh, okay. And actually, Town Council says it's actually coming up again in Article 8. So
That is true. It is a separate article. Thank you.
we need to redo, I think we're done with everything here, unless Mr. Griffin's got a, you already spoke on the article, so
Speaking to the, this new one that you just said, the 8.1 million.
we're not talking about that now.
Okay. so
It's
you
beyond the
took-
scope of the article to bring it
you
up
took it
here.
off.
It's Article
You-
8,
you-
it's Article 8 addresses that project as a separate project. Basically, what happens is the warrant tells everybody what the money that's going to be spent is. So you can't add something in for $8 million. It's
Right, so
an
it's not,
exception.
it's not on this.
It's not on this, no.
Okay, thank you.
I think we're done unless you've got,
I have a question on the, concerning what Mr. Carrier just said on the pumping station.
well, that's Article 8. We're going to talk about this in Article 8. So
Okay.
you're all set. I do one thing of housekeeping. We had Mr. Carrier's amendment. I did not actually, we need to accept his amendment, that's a majority vote, and then vote that 170,000. So we're going to do this again. All those in favor of the amendment to 170,000, raise your hand. This is a majority vote. All those opposed? All those in favor of the article as amended at 170, raise your hand. This is a two-thirds vote. All opposed? And that passes. So we are now, and I'm going to make a motion that we pass as amended Article 4. Again, this is a two-thirds vote. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? I declare that passes by two-thirds. Article 10 and 11 are up. Are these linked? They're linked. So these are two linked articles, 10 and 11. They're similar in nature. You can find Article 10 in your warrants. On page 13. Article 10, the planning board moves that Article 10, as set forth in the April 24, 2023 annual town meeting warrant. This is going to be a two-thirds vote. Planning board, somebody from the planning board here to move it. There you go.
Karen Horn, 36 Phillips Farm Road. I'm the assistant town planner. Currently, in the zoning bylaw, we do not have a definition of self-storage facilities, nor is it identified in the table of use. The proposed change would provide that definition, and we would allow self-storage facilities by right in the business B1, B2, and B3 district, in the industrial district, and by special permit in the WRPD. We currently have several storage facilities in town, and we have received interest from a couple of other companies to open up new self-storage facilities.
Okay, thank you. Mark Ford is...
The advisory board recommends by a vote of 8-0 that we pass these two articles. As Ms. Horn explained, this is an important addition to the zoning bylaws, especially to clarify the requirements and limitations of self-storage facilities in town, which currently is not present in the bylaws.
Okay. We'll go to discussion from the floor. Rear microphone, Mr. Carrier.
David Carrier, 34 Outlook Road. I just have one question, and that will be, are we going to build restrictions into these self-storage units that would prohibit items, that might be hazardous? Recently, one of the other towns I was listening on ATD mentioned that they had a self-storage unit that was proposing to have basically the batteries that can go on fire in the storage, and it was being opposed. I would want to have restrictions, I think, in self-storage by right that would prevent the storage of those kinds of hazardous material.
According to town council, that would be imposed, technically, the site plan approval would impose those restrictions. Mr. Kelly.
Eric Kelly, Piece of Path. In regards to the table of use regulations, is the zoning changed in regards to the location of these, or is it the same where they can be placed?
Ms. Horn?
I don't understand the question.
Did the locations, are we talking about the locations?
Yeah,
of any,
well, it has B1, B2, B3, so I wasn't too sure if there's any changes in regards to where the
have any of those designations
We're not
changed?
changing the map for those, no, for self-storage. It's just would show up in the table of use as by right under those districts.
Yeah, okay, so everything's the same, there's no changes in regards to how you did it?
No.
All right, thank you.
Bob Shaughnessy, 231 Hampstead Way. I'm on the Board of Public Works. My concern is the MRPD overlay. You gave an answer, and I didn't really understand what do you mean by the answer you gave. What kind of restrictions can we have on that section of the table of use regulations just for the overlay? I really don't have a concern with the business aspect of, but if someone's having self-storage and they're packing in certain chemicals could leach into the ground, we could have a problem.
So, Robert Galvin, Town Council, in the WRPD, all uses are regulated and restricted with the groundwater protection as a paramount goal. There's only certain types of things that can be stored if a self-storage facility was located in that overlay district. So I don't think you have a single concern there, because we've had to reject retail businesses for the same reason, because they kept fertilizers and chemicals. So the same would apply to a self-storage facility.
Thank you, I was just concerned about that, thank you.
Okay. So seeing no further questions, I'm going to call for a vote on Article 10. This would be a two-thirds vote because it's zoning. All those in favor of Article 10, please raise your hand. All opposed? I declare that passes by two-thirds. Article 11 is linked. That was basically the same article, but it's part of the same definition, right? So again, I'm going to go to a vote for this for two-thirds on Article 10. All those in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? I declare that Article 11 passes as well. Article 12 is the next one up. Conveniently, you don't have to turn your page. This is another zoning article. The planning board moves that Article 12 as set forth in the Article 12 as set forth in the April 24th, 2023 annual town meeting warrant. Ms. Horn? You shouldn't have sat down so quickly.
I didn't know we were next. In this article, we're proposing a map change, and is that the next? Is there not a slide for that? In any case, we had a resident approach us last year looking to change an area down off of between Plymouth Ave and Ocean Street.
The map is actually on the back of your warrant.
Okay. And with between Adams Street and Heather Road. That currently is a B3 district. There are no longer any businesses in that area. So we were proposing to change it to the R3 residential district.
Planning board? Or advisory board, rather? I'm sorry.
8-0 with one abstention. As Ms. Warren explained, this area is already entirely residential as it is. And in our meetings, nobody came forward with any objections from the neighborhood. And so for that reason, we recommend passage.
Okay, discussion from the floor. Seeing none, again, this is a two-thirds vote. All in favor of Article 12, please raise your hand. All opposed? I declare that that passes by two-thirds. Article 18. Article 18 is up next. It's on page 20, page 19 of my set. You know, 21? Page 20. Article 18, the Select Board moves Article 18 as set forth in the April 24, 2023 annual town meeting warrant. Mr. Maresco, and I know that he has an amendment on this as well.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michael Moresco, 201 Arlington Street. Like to amend this by striking and/or citizens petition articles. This was drafted by the former moderator. There was some discussion last year when we did resolutions. Resolutions always go at the end. Somehow, citizens petition, anyone that has never done a citizens petition, it's quite a bit of work. You have to go out, get the signatures, meet the signature requirement, have them certified, and get them on. So that should not be part of this.
Okay. That's an acceptable amendment. Right. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote on the amendment. That'd be a majority vote. All those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. All opposed? I declare that the amendment passes. So, Mr. Moresco, do you want to make any comment on the article?
Michael Moresco. I move that we approve the article as is. It just puts in a policy perspective that resolutions go at the end. It's always been understood that resolutions are the end, non-binding, it's an up and down vote, and then the select board goes to the select board and they have 30 days to schedule a public hearing to discuss the resolution.
Advisory Board?
Yeah, thank you. The board supports this article, which hopefully will shorten up town meetings while laying out the order of the meeting's agenda regarding citizens' petitions and resolutions. The advisory board recommends approval of this article by a vote of 8-0.
Okay, this is a majority vote. There is a question from the rear microphone.
Eric Kelly, Peterson Path. I didn't get the amendment from the town administrator. Could you repeat that?
Pardon me?
The amendment from the town administrator?
The amendment struck the words and/or citizens petition articles. So that was struck. That's already been adopted. We now would have an
Okay.
amended article that no
All right.
longer exists.
Oh, sorry. My concern is where it's treating citizen petition articles to be considered last. I don't think that's right.
It was removed.
Oh, it was removed?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I apologize. All right, thank you.
That was the amendment to remove that. Okay, seeing no further comment from the floor, it's a majority vote. All in favor of Article 18, raise your hand. All opposed? I declare that Article 18 passes. Okay. We're now on to Articles 19 and 20. They are linked. I'm going to start with Article 19. The Select Board moves that the town vote to accept the provisions of Section 55C of Chapter 44 of the Massachusetts General Laws, authorizing the establishment of a municipal affordable housing trust to provide for the creation and preservation of affordable housing for the benefit of low and moderate income households, and for the funding of the community housing and for the funding of community housing in accordance with Chapter 44B of the Massachusetts General Laws. That's put forward by the Select Board. Mr. Moresco.
Michael Moresco, 201 Arlington Street. Why we need the creation of the trust fund. Up until now, the Housing Authority has always held those funds. Those funds have to be held by an entity other than the town. The town treasurer, however, is responsible for how those get invested and what kind of investment opportunities there are, interest, MMDT accounts, things like that. But the trust so we need the trust because the Housing Authority will no longer hold our funds. We need someone to hold the funds. We need someone to do the affordable lottery. If this Article 19 passes, this will allow for the creation of the trust fund. Now, the trust fund the trust serves as a purchasing partner to create affordable housing. The trustees from this trust are responsible and required to report annually, the close of the fiscal year, to the Select Board. Units created by the trust fund go on the SHI list for the state housing inventory. If approved, town meeting would create the establishment of the Municipal Affordable Housing Fund and the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust for the benefit of low and moderate income households for the creation of community housing. Low households are 40 to 50%, moderate is like 70 or 80. The terms of the trust and the body of the trust language, what the trust can and can't do, is embodied in Article 20. And so we need 19 to be adopted, and then 20, that's why these are linked, gets into the do's and don'ts of what the trust can do. And there are safety measures that I can get into once we get to Article 20, which talks about building affordable housing with those funds. I don't want to stray too far into Article 20, so I hope the town meeting would support Article 19. It's very important that we have the trust fund for these funds to be managed and used to create affordable housing.
Advisory Board. I don't have a list of who was supposed to be speaking from the advisory board. Susan?
Susan Tiskowitz of the advisory board. The advisory board voted unanimously to support this article. Mr. Maresco explained it quite well. The housing authority simply is not going to hold the funds any longer, so the town does need to establish a trust to hold the funds.
Okay, this is going to be a majority vote. Rear microphone.
Okay, Mr. Moderator, I would make a motion to discuss Article 20 first, so that we would understand what the trust would be doing and who would be managing it. I read this Article 20, and I think it's a very wieldy article. There's a lot to it. And before we get into that, of that, by approving Article 19 first, I would like to move the question to vote on Article 20 first. Thank you.
According to town council, we need to vote Article 19 first to create the law, and then Article 20 is subsequent to that vote on Article 19.
If I may say so, I don't think we can understand what the trust will be until we discuss Article 20.
It's the way it's got to, I will have Mr.
It's
Galvin
not a
explain.
very simple subject.
Agreed.
Robert Galvin, Town Council. So Article 19 is an acceptance of the provisions of the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust Law, and there's no need to reach Article 20, which is the actual adoption of a bylaw, until you've accepted the law that allows you to create the trust. So procedurally, 19 has to go before 20. I think it's a fair question and subject to the moderator's discretion. If you have some questions about how a municipal affordable housing trust works, we could probably answer some of those questions, but procedurally, 19 has to go first.
Well, I would have questions.
Just a moment. Mr. Maresco, you were just a short time ago saying you didn't want to stray too far into Article 20, but maybe this would be helpful to have you flesh Article 20 out a little bit prior to us voting on Article 19.
Mr. Moderator, I'm happy to do that. So I can get into Article 20. So Article 20 is the actual body of the trust. And I'll quickly go through it. There were many pages. So the trust establishes the name of the trust, describes the purpose of the trust, what it's intended to do. It would create a board of trustees, 5 to 7 members, 1 member of the select board, all members appointed by the select board. Okay. 1 resident of Marshfield can serve. The important note is that neither the trustees nor any agent or officer of the trust shall have the authority to bind the town of Marshfield. Meetings of the trust are quarterly, minutes prepared by the clerk. Powers of the trust to accept real property, personal property, or money, purchase property, sell or lease, exchange, or transfer real property, execute and acknowledge delivery of deeds, to employ advisors, pay reasonable compensation and expenses to advisors, to carry property for accounting purposes. It's important to note to borrow money on such terms and conditions that the board deems advisable for mortgages and pledge trust assets or collateral, but any mortgage or pledge of assets as collateral greater than the extent of the trust itself's assets requires approval, a 2/3 majority vote of an annual or special town meeting. And that's very important to know. Manage and approve real property, hold all other part of the trust property, to make recommendations on proposals to town meeting, to develop policies, goals, and statements consistent with the town's adopted housing goals, to establish criteria and qualifications for recipients, to serve as the lottery and monitoring agent for affordable housing, Trustees are considered special municipal employees, subject to 268A. Trustees are hereby authorized to record declaration of trust at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds and the Registered Land Division of the Land Court. The trust will continue as long as it's authorized under the laws of the Commonwealth, and the powers of the trustees shall continue until the affairs of the trust are concluded.
Okay. Mr. Galvin's going to flesh in some more of the details on the trusts.
So over 100 communities in Massachusetts have adopted municipal affordable housing trusts since 2005. Marshfield has had the benefit of a housing partnership for many years. It was an advocacy group, never intended to be thrust into the role of creating affordable housing because, frankly, it was beyond the scope of its authority. It was intended to study affordable housing needs and make recommendations for affordable housing, but isn't technically able to create affordable housing. The Municipal Affordable Housing Trust can actually create affordable housing. And I represent the Duxbury Affordable Housing Trust, which is Duxbury's version of the event, the Norwell Community Housing Trust, which is Norwell's Community Housing Trust. And the way it's really worked in function in Duxbury and in Norwell, where I do have some experience, is many times a unit will come up either through a foreclosure that's affordable unit, and there's no one that's eligible to purchase the unit. The Affordable Housing Trust steps in and comes in, repurchases the unit, holds it until such time as someone is eligible to purchase it, and creates and preserves an affordable housing unit. Duxbury 2 years ago had a parcel of land near the highway. Obviously, there's a need in all the communities for more affordable housing, and developed 6 units of super affordable housing, which was affordable to someone earning 50% of the median income. And I think that was half the units. The other half of the units were affordable to someone that was earning 80% of the median area income. So that's a couple of circumstances where it worked. But a local housing trust can also rehabilitate existing homes to create more affordable housing. It can increase affordability in new housing development projects. It can develop surplus municipal land for affordable housing. It can preserve properties that are faced with expiring affordable housing restrictions. Up till a few years ago, affordable housing restrictions had an end point or could be affected by foreclosure. And under the new law, when they're created under the from about 10 years ago, they could be perpetual restrictions. It can also create programs to assist in people that are interested in low and moderate income home buyers, providing deposits and things of that nature. And it really has worked well in the other communities. I think the communities that I cited are a lot like our town. We haven't all reached 10% affordable housing, and it really does fulfill a need, giving the town another tool to create affordable housing. And probably the most important thing I think people should know is that when the town itself is creating affordable housing, it creates a much more responsible affordable housing development than if it's placed in the hands of a private developer creating affordable housing. And if you look at any of the projects that the town has been faced with recently, they're in excess of 250 units on fairly small tracts of land. When you're in charge of who's creating that affordable housing, you find a much better affordable housing project.
I hope that helped you in your information finding.
There's a lot more to be said, and I'll say one thing right now. The way this is written, to have 7-member body as the trustees of the Affordable Housing Trust, to meet 4 times a year, doesn't seem like we could actually get the job done the right way. And it seems much too wieldy for the people who are in the town hall now. The people who would be on the trust would be one select person. If the town administrator wished to be on the trust, he would be on the trust. Anybody who's going to be on the trust would be selected by the selectmen to be
If
on
I
the
could just
trust.
say, you're just about out of time, so if you want to wrap
So
up.
that's 7 people, and they're all being managed by the selectmen and the town administrator.
Your time is up. Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Left microphone.
Amy Gilliman, 556 Pleasant Street. Hopefully this will help address a little bit of what that woman was wondering. There's a very serious danger of an unnecessary concentration of power to and from the individuals who would be appointed to this board by Town Hall. For example, Marshfield Town Administrator has already been slated to be appointed to this board. We currently have a Housing Authority Board who have been elected by the people of Marshfield. If this article passes, there will be no limit to what this trust can do, and there will be no opportunity for citizens to enable our right to checks and balances on what's being done by this board. This board will have unbounded access to purchase property and build housing with our tax dollars, and we will have no representation on anything they decide. There will be no limit to how much money can be given to this trust by contractors and developers who would have a vested interest in building high-density housing and likely no interest in the wishes of the voter citizenship of Marshfield. As a result, citizens would have no vote on high-density housing in our communities. This trust may be a direct step in a plan to develop areas like Blackman's Point for high-density housing, while simultaneously avoiding the process of getting any approvals from town meeting on future projects. Please vote no.
Okay, thank you. Right microphone.
76 Nantasket Street. Couple of questions on 19. One is, how much money are we talking being transferred from the housing into this new proposed authority?
Yep, Mr. Maresco?
Michael Moresco, 201 Arlington Street. So right now, the Housing Authority is holding $302,188, and Rockland Trust is holding $165,092 for a total of $467,280.
Is the reason that we want to transfer it and set up a new authority because it is now being held out of town as far as the authority? They run Grace Rider, don't they, and some of the other areas the town runs?
Mr. Maresco?
No, the reason that we're moving for the trust is the Housing Authority. No, we've been notified by the Housing Authority that they don't want to hold the town's funding. So the next step would be then to create a housing trust. Most, as you heard from Town Council, there's 100 other communities that have the trust vehicle created, which would hold the local money.
And the next question would be, does this mean that you can circumvent any of our zoning and building laws that we have existed with for the last 50 years that I've been a builder?
Town Council says no. Okay. Rear microphone. Mr. Shaughnessy, I think you were up next.
I'm for affordable housing.
Name and address, please.
Yeah, Bob Shaughnessy, 231 Hampstead Way. I am for affordable housing. I'm concerned about the town administrator, if appointed as a trustee, needs not be a resident of Marshfield. It's Marshfield's money. Isn't the town administrator an ex-officiate member of all boards anyway? Why does he have to be appointed to as a trustee?
It's, according to Town Council, it's a requirement of the law. It's a state law. It's a requirement of the state law.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lynch?
Lynch, 50 Central Street. So are we at the 10% affordable limit right now so that we can't be forced to accept 40Bs?
Let me have Attorney Galvin speak.
So Ms. Horn might be able to give you the more accurate information, but we are not at 10%. And when the census figures are released, I think it's coming in May, we will be significantly lower than where we are now. So if we're in the vicinity of 8.5%, we'll be less than that when the new census figures are released.
And is the sole funding of this trust the community preservation taxes that we pay on our properties?
No. People can donate money to the trust. When a developer pays a fee in lieu of building affordable housing, those funds would be placed in this trust. Community preservation funds could be placed in this trust if town meeting approves it, but it is not an automatic thing that money gets placed in the Affordable Housing Trust. It's always discretionary with town meeting.
But that will be the majority of the source of money.
Well, you've just been told $400,000 is sitting in the state or the quasi-municipal housing authority, which is not actually a town entity, and we don't have a mechanism and a vehicle to spend money on affordable housing unless we create something like this. So that's what's going to happen first. And yes, from time to time, community preservation funds are placed in affordable housing trusts. But again, that's up to the will of the voters at town meeting.
Well, I think we have plenty of affordable housing in Marshfield after all the stuff that's being built. And I would say that, you know, what is it, 10% or 25% of CPA money has to go towards affordable housing as it is now?
10%.
10%. So we've been putting in hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last 40 years anyway, right? So I think Marshfield has paid its fair share. Maybe we should do something, a trust, to give the taxpayers who own properties in Marshfield a break rather than more affordable housing. I think we have plenty of it. And I don't see any reason to vote yes on either one of these. We've done our share. Thank you.
Okay. Left microphone.
Cody Rowland, 45 Whitford Circle. I'm actually the vice chair for the Affordable Housing Partnership. There's a whole lot to cover. I have not much time. We've worked very hard to create affordable housing in Marshfield, and probably unbeknownst to most of you here, there's affordable housing in every neighborhood in this community for the most part. The majority of the money that's received by the partnership is sent by CPC or donations in lieu of affordable housing from other developers. And it takes a whole lot of money to develop one unit. We've had an MHOP program that we've used for the past, 15 or more years, maybe more, I forget, where we subsidize the purchase of an affordable home for someone who qualifies. And just for clarification, just so you know, the affordable income, someone can qualify for an affordable home at an income level of $111,000 a year for a family of four. So it's not like these people are voucher holders or anything along those lines. They want to buy a home, they're employed. I've actually sold several of these affordable homes as a realtor before I got on the partnership, where the town gives to that homeowner $120,000 for a family of four to buy down the cost of that property. And then it goes into the affordable housing stock in perpetuity to always be affordable housing. So they're scattered all over the town. The challenge we have right now is we don't have control of our money. We can't really plan any other specific programs that might be helpful. We don't have a ton of money. There's no giant developments that are planned. We don't have $200 million to do anything with. And even if we did, it takes 2/3 majority of the town to vote on anything along those lines. Correct me if I'm wrong. I just hope you vote in favor of this, because we're struggling really hard to make sure that we're in control of the affordable housing development here in Marshfield, so we're not forced with 40Bs. That's all I got.
Thank you. Ms. Pasevich.
Joe Pasevich, Wilson Road. Yes, this is very complicated. Again, on the question of Marshfield's 10%, is there somebody from the Housing Partnership or other agency that can verify what Mr. Galvin just said?
Can you? Yep. 8%.
And what will happen if the second phase of Madeira is approved?
Yeah, if you can get to a microphone, Cody, that would be great. Since we have somebody from the Housing Partnership here to answer questions, that's useful. So please.
So it's a ratio. So the new development came in, they gave us 10% of those units, so it stays the same. I mean, it doesn't shift much. So 800 units, we get 10%, but there's still 800 units, and we have to have a 10%, so it shifts it less than 1%. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Well, I've heard figures that we will hit 10% if that second phase is approved. I've heard
You were just told we will not.
Well, without giving us a figure, it's very vague. It's very vague, Mr. Moderator. Okay, next point, if I may. The previous speaker also said that it'll take town meeting 2/3 vote to do a big project. If you read again, it says 2/3 vote to borrow. Okay, so that's also inaccurate. Also, I want to know, we've just heard from the town council that funds are not available now, and also heard from a previous speaker that funds are not now available to do affordable housing projects. Could someone explain to me why we have been using CPA funds, we have been using the payments from contractors to build affordable housing? We did the veterans housing, we've done 27 or 28 MHOPS programs houses, we've done a lot of work. I would ask Mr. Town Council, who touts Duxbury's plan, what has Duxbury done?
With regard to what?
Production of affordable housing. What has their housing trust done?
Do you know?
I just gave an example of a project last year. So Duxbury Affordable Housing Trust has a parcel of land on the Kingston side of Duxbury that they're in the process of proposing a significant affordable housing project. It's not a done deal because they still have to go through all permitting and there are issues that relate to that. But I gave an example of a Habitat for Humanity project, and I gave an example of another project with the 6 units of affordable housing on 2 acres near the highway in Duxbury. They haven't had a lot of community support, to be candid to you, about that in Duxbury. People all over the place say they're supportive of affordable housing, but when it comes down to actually building it and reaching affordable housing goals, most communities just don't get there. Only the communities that are closer to the city of Boston do. And this is just one additional tool that the town of Marshfield would have to help it reach its affordable housing goal. And the way I understand it is if the second Mill Creek project is permitted and approved and succeeds after the litigation that's been filed against it, we will not reach 10%. And I stand by what I've heard Mr. Geeman said in the past, that when the new census is reached, we'll be further away from the 10% than we are today.
Okay, now, it's been said that no funds have been used or are available to create affordable housing. Is there anybody from planning, from the Housing Partnership, that could tell me that's true or not?
Would be, Mr. Maresco, do you have any input on that?
I'm not sure I understand the question, Mr. Moderator.
Can you say it again, please?
I'll repeat it, but don't run the clock. It's been said that we do not have access to the funds that we have from CPA and from contractor payments, but we've been using those funds for over 10 years and have created a lot of affordable housing under those programs. But it's being represented that those funds are not available. That is not true. And I can also help with regards to Duxbury. Marshfield has outproduced Duxbury, and Duxbury's been at it longer than we have, but we have outproduced Duxbury in terms of affordable housing. That's a fact. Now, next thing I want to know, Mr. Galvin, you listed a bunch of things, and a bunch of things are listed in Article 20 as to what the Housing Trust can do. Is it not true that Chapter 121B of the Mass General Laws can do all of those things, and that we have a housing authority that implements Chapter 121B right now?
We do not have a housing authority.
The Marshfield Housing Authority is not a town entity.
The Marshfield Housing Authority is not a town entity, is what Mr. Galvin just said.
It is established under Mass General laws to create affordable housing in the town where it is created. We have it. It has all the powers that are listed in here, and it has a majority elected board.
Do you want to speak to this, or?
Norwell has a housing authority, Situate has a housing authority, Duxbury has a housing authority. They're only quasi-municipal. They have their own council, they operate independently of the town. Those are not a substitute for a municipal affordable housing trust.
They do exactly the things you just enumerated in Article 20. Next question, if I may. It's been said that the housing authority doesn't want to hold the money. I want someone from the housing authority to tell me that they took a vote and decided that. When did that happen?
Mr. Maresco? I don't know that there's anybody here that's going to say that. I'm going to go to the town administrator. Mr. Maresco?
I was told by the executive director, James Marathis, and his legal counsel that they no longer wanted to hold the town of Marshfield's funds.
So, Mr. Cantwell, do you have something to add to this?
No, Kevin Cantwell, I am on the Housing Authority. That is true. The current board, we work right now. The Quincy Housing Authority has been managing Marshfield for a couple of years. They've done a good job. And they do not want to hold the money. They feel it's a conflict for them holding the money. To the prior speaker's assertion that the Housing Authority can do this, we cannot do this, all right? All there is a mechanism. We do not want to hold the money there anymore. The money did get transferred over, as a point of fact, for the veterans' housing. So we have used money from the Housing Authority money they were holding, but it's a process to do that, and the Housing Authority does no longer want to be holding the funds.
Okay. Ms. Pasevich, you're about out of time.
I just need to answer that. I've gone through all the minutes, I've gone through all the agendas, I've looked at all the documents I can. The Housing Authority has not met and has not voted to turn those funds over. And the executive director is not empowered to speak for the Housing Authority.
Well, but you're out of time, so thank you very much. Mr. Griffin.
Jack Griffin, 44 Marshall Avenue, former member of the Marshfield Housing Partnership. I'm all for the article, but I do have a question in regards to the composition of the trustees. Would it be possible, or is it against state law, to amend this to say that the trustees must be a resident of Marshfield?
Mr. Galvin? He's checking.
So, Chapter 44, Section 55C, Subpart B says there shall be a Board of Trustees in this section called the Board, which shall include no less than 5 trustees, including the Chief Executive Officer as defined by Section 7 of Chapter 4 of the City or Town. But where the Chief Executive Officer is a multi-member board, that body shall designate a minimum of one of its members to serve on the board. The rest of them would always be town residents.
So I'd like to add that as an amendment. I don't know which motion.
Well, the state law says the town administrator needs to be on that board,
That's
and therefore
okay.
you can't require the town administrator to be a town resident.
Well, we can amend it as town administrator.
It's a state law.
Right.
State law says it's got to be the town administrator.
No,
So-
what I'm saying is town administrator and the rest of the board would be Marshfield citizens.
That's the way it's set up, yes.
Can we put that in the motion?
It's, Mr. Galvin says it's in there. Subpart D. Subpart D.
And where? In the,
On
Only persons who are residents of Marshfield shall be appointed as trustee. Any trustee who ceases to be a resident of Marshfield shall cease to be a trustee hereunder and shall promptly provide a written notification of change of residence to the board and to the chief clerk. Town
Great.
clerk, rather.
Great, thank you. I support this article.
Okay. Ms. Anderson?
Martine Anderson, number 5 Weathervane Lane. I was on the Housing Partnership for many, many years. I just recently retired from there. Maybe I can just give you a little view. When this community voted to have the preservation of our historic properties and our recreational fields and that sort of thing, part of that community preservation is 10% of your tax dollars that you pay with your real estate taxes goes toward affordable housing. And we've done very well. When we started off, it was like 5%, and through the years, we've been able, it takes 100 units to get 1% toward our 10% goal. And I don't think anybody in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts expects that they will reach their 10%, especially communities like Marshfield. Some of the others have. Every time a builder or a developer builds something that's that are very nice condominiums and that sort of thing, if they use state money, 25% of those units are supposed to go to people who have affordable incomes. Now, affordable incomes today are anything under $80,000 a year, because the median in Boston, to which we are attached, is over $120,000 a year. So anybody that earns less than $80,000 a year can qualify. Now we have, and through the years, we've had a lottery. Anybody that wanted to
You just have like 15 seconds left.
filled out a form, and we were able to expend those funds and provide affordable housing for people in this community, and I'm proud of the work we've done.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly? No applause, please.
Eric Kelly, Peterson Path. Everybody keeps talking about this 10%. We will never reach it at the rate we're going. The one thing nobody wants to talk about, at least I'm the only one pretty much, is the 1.5% land requirement. Now, it's to my understanding that 1.5% needs to be dedicated to affordable housing. I believe we are at 1.1, and Mr. Geeman, if he's here, can speak to this. All we need to do is collect, I think, about another 700 acres, and we get the 1.5%, and we never have to worry about this 40B issue ever again. So I'm not for this. I think this is a smokescreen for something else. I think if the town goes out and searches and gets another 600-700 acres to buy up, then we'll meet the 1.5% requirement, and we'll be done with this. I think it'd be easier to pay for buy property, marshland, whatever else like that is, than it is to start a whole new trustee funding mechanism and all that. I suggest everybody shoot this down, and I don't think you know what you're expecting when this passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to the gentleman at the right microphone, and then we'll go into a vote.
Bernie Dupuy, 6 Weathervane Lane, Marshfield. I'm not against the trust per se. However, as they look at the qualifications of the people and how they're going to be selected for it, I have some severe anxiety and issues about that. I think they should be elected positions as opposed to appointed. One of my reasons for saying that is because I look at the Zoning Board of Appeals who are appointed, and I see that some of the decisions they make are not in vibration with the town per se. As an example, the first Mill Creek, now the Madison. Mr. Galvin mentioned that the some other towns have horrendous, I think was to use the word, 250 units in a very small tract of land. The Mill Creek, that was under appeal right now, was approved at his recommendation, 270 units on 12.5 acres of land. Think of that, 270 units on 12.5 acres of land. I think the board should be selected by vote, and I also disagree with the qualifications. I don't think you have to be involved in housing, finance, law, or real estate to have some interest or desire to be involved in a position like this. I think we need people with common sense
who can look at the issues, see how it's going to have an overall impact on the town with regard to people coming in, the creation of a huge student body with a huge impact upon school taxes and further taxes in the town. Thank you.
State law requires them to be in a board appointed by the Board of Selectmen. So you're out of time anyways, but it's required in the law to have the board appointed.
If that's the case, then I could not support this. Thank you.
All right, so this is going to be a majority vote for Article 19. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? That's close enough that I'm going to go to a standing vote. It's pretty even. I think everybody's going to want to know it. So if you're going to vote, get in your seats, and we're going to go to a standing vote. So we have 5 tellers this evening. Section A is Bert O'Donnell. Section B is Barbara Carney. Section C is Anne Marie Sacchetti. Section D is Cindy Castro. And Section E is Andrew Wenning. And Nerese Casper for the front of the room. And Cindy Castro, yes, hi Cindy. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming. So all those in favor of Article 19, please rise. If nothing else, we get to see how many people took the time to show up tonight. We all counted? Section A, 3. Section B, 17. Section C, 12. Section D, Section E. 3. Front of the House? 14. 14. So what's our total there, just out of curiosity? 62? Okay, all those opposed, please rise. Are we all counted? There are people standing. I just want to make sure we're all counted. Section A, 5. Section B, 2. Section C, 3. Section D, 20. Section E, 9. Section front of the room, 0. So that the article clearly passes by majority. So we are on to Article 20. That was Article 19 that we just voted on. Article 20. The Select Board moves Article 20 is set forth in the April 24th, 2023 Annual Town Meeting warrant. I believe we've pretty much had the discussion on Article 20. So, Mr. Maresco, do you have anything to say?
I just hope that town meeting supports the final piece, which is 20, which is the actual language that we previously discussed.
Okay. Mr. Pasevich, I'm going to allow very limited discussion on this. We've pretty much already hashed out the article, but Mr. Pasevich, go ahead.
I want to say, Joe Pasevich, Wilson Road, for the record, and also in full disclosure, I am a candidate for the Housing Authority. So for Mr. Galvin, the town's lawyer, to in any way minimize and even cast doubt on the existence of a housing authority in the town of Marshfield is something that's probably reportable. Mass General Law, Chapter 121B, allows for the establishment of housing authorities in all the towns and cities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. You can read Chapter 121B, and it does all the things that are listed in this housing trust piece of legislation. In fact, I wouldn't doubt, and Mr. Galvin probably knows because I think he wrote this, that he probably got the content from Chapter 121B. That would be my guess, because it's almost perfect duplication of it. And again, for the record, Mr. Cantwell spoke for the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority has not discussed this issue. It is not in the minutes. It's not in the agendas. Mr. Cantwell himself is on the board illegally, serving 2 elected positions in contradiction to Marshfield town law. That is a complete lie to say that the Housing Authority determined that the funds should be turned over to a housing trust. That's a fabrication. This is a concentration of power. Mike Maresco, you do a lot of work. I don't know how many things you chair and how many meetings you go to every week, at least 5 or 6 a day. And now you're going to be on this board. This is a concentration of power where it should not be concentrated, and it is not going to be accountable to the voters. This is a travesty. Shame on you all for what you've done to the town of Marshfield over the last 20 years.
Okay. Ms. Anderson. No applause, please. We don't do applause. Ms. Anderson?
Jean Anderson, number 5 Weathervane Lane. There is unfortunately some concern on the part of Mr. Pasevich about the Housing Authority. This money is not the Housing Authority. It belongs to community preservation entity known as the Housing Partnership. The Housing Partnership has total control over this money and how it is spent. We get money, for instance, the beautiful proprietors building that has all the kinds of elderly people in it. They didn't want to provide the town of Marshfield with any affordable units there, so they gave us the money instead, $350,000, and that money goes to some kind of a bank account. And then we spent it over the years providing people with incomes under $75,000 with home ownership and affordable properties. This money does not belong to the Housing Authority. We needed a place to put it back in 2005. Town meeting voted down the trust. So now we were stuck with money and we had no place to put it. The money is usually spent when the CPC comes before the board, the town meeting, and the projects that we have and the money that we have to spend comes from the Community Preservation Act money. And so it doesn't have anything to do with the Housing Authority.
15 seconds.
And I hope you support this, otherwise we're stuck in limbo again with money that belongs to the partnership, but we have no access.
Okay, you're out of time.
I urge
Thank
you to support this. Thank you.
Ms. Maglio.
I'd like to say there's been some misstatements, if not from Mr. Galvin, then within the text of this article. It says, the town administrator, if appointed as a trustee, that goes against what Mr. Galvin said, that he must be a trustee under the law. So that is wrong, what Mr. Galvin said. All trustees must be appointed by a majority vote of the select board. That means the select board's going to control all the trustees, who's going to be on. Okay? Now I'm going to say something that everybody knows. Every time you build a big complex, like what we're seeing down at the Circle in Situate, every time you build a big complex with all kinds of condos in it, and some of that is affordable housing, you're adding to the town population that 90% or whatever the number is that is not affordable housing. And you are servicing those people. And you have not serviced the town of Marshfield for their needs. We in the north side of town need water correction. We need an aqueduct repaired. We in the north side of town need sewerage. We haven't been able to get that. You cannot spend the money from the Water Enterprise Fund and the Sewerage Enterprise Fund on everything in the world without taking care of the problems we have with water and sewerage.
You're way beyond the scope of the article.
Okay.
And you're about out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, I'm going to a vote. This is again a majority vote. All in favor of Article 20, please raise your hand. All opposed? I declare that Article 20 passes. We are on to, what's the next article? 13? Article 13. Which is another zoning article, planning board article. The planning board moves Article 13 is set forth in the April 24th, 2023 annual town meeting warrant. Ms. Horn?
Karen Horn, 36 Phillips Farm Road. This article is correcting the language within the table of use for educational purposes for land. The Dover Amendment allows for educational purposes to be by right, but the language we had wasn't consistent with the state law, so we were just correcting that.
Thank you. Advisory Board? Mr. Ford?
Advisory Board recommends passage of this article to bring the zoning bylaws into conformance with the Dover Amendment.
Okay. Do we have any discussion on Article 13? Seeing none, I'll go to a vote. This is a 2/3 vote because it's a planning board article. All those in favor of Article 13, please raise your hand. All opposed? I declare that Article 13 passes by 2/3. We're on to Article 8. Article 8 in the warrant is on page 12. The Board of Public Works moves that the town vote, 1, to appropriate the sum of $8,100,000 to upgrade the Plymouth Avenue, there's a lot of zeros there, so I got confused, to upgrade the Plymouth Avenue wastewater pump station. 2, to meet this appropriation, authorize the treasurer collector with the approval of the Board of Selectmen to borrow all or a portion of such amount from the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust pursuant to Chapter 29C of Massachusetts General Laws and issue general obligations bonds therefore, with the debt service to be defrayed by the Wastewater Enterprise Fund, and further, 3, to accept any state or federal grants for the project, which grants amounts received prior to the issuance of bonds or notes shall be used to reduce the amount of to be borrowed, said funds to be expended under the direction of the Superintendent of the Board of Public Works, or Superintendent of Public Works, and the general supervision of the Board of Public Works. Mr. Reynolds.
Tom Reynolds, DPW Superintendent, Mr. Moderator. Article 8, the Plymouth Ave wastewater pump station was constructed in the late 1970s and is currently handling 2/3 of the wastewater in the town Seward area. The pumping equipment and the piping, electrical system, controls, HVAC, and emergency generator are all in need of replacement. The concrete tank walls are deteriorating and require concrete repair and grate replacement. The building will be extended to house the generator, and the disinfecting equipment will be brought inside the building. The building roof and siding will be replaced. A flood protection wall will be constructed around the building to meet long-term predicted rises in sea level. Recent installation of the sewer bypass and new sewer force main will allow the station to be taken offline during construction. The funds will be used to cover the cost of construction, engineering, oversight, as well as the owner's project manager. This project was approved to be funded through the state revolving fund program, which will limit the interest rate to 2%. We received $2.3 million in ARPA funding towards this project, and the balance would be paid through a SRF funding program that at this point in time, we're not sure, but the possibility of total forgiveness or partial forgiveness on this project is a possibility for the town. The possible estimated sewer user rate increase would be about $100 per user.
Okay. Ms. Costello from the Advisory Board.
Sherry Costello, 9 Freshbrook Way. The Advisory Board recommended approval of this article by a vote of 8-0. This pump station is critical infrastructure to the community, and it's necessary to prevent the failure of the system and any catastrophic environmental impact. In the event of failure, businesses and homes in the area could experience major plumbing issues. If a pipe leaks or breaks, it could create a public health hazard with raw sewage in the streets. It could also affect the beach, the harbor, the marsh, the shellfish beds, and wildlife. And to recover from this type of an event would take quite a while.
Okay. This is going to be a 2/3 vote because there's borrowing involved. Mr. Carrier.
David Carrier, 34 Outlook Road. I respectfully request that town meetings support this particular article. It is important for the operation of the sewer system, in particular, all of those branches that were made as part of Sewer 2000. And it also is necessary for any of our future expansions. Then the two areas that were looked at back in 2015 were expansion into the Kent Park area and also possibly into one portion of the Blackmount area off of Webster Street. And without a Plymouth Avenue pump station operating properly, the Kent Park action would not be feasible because of the additional flow and the issues would happen if we do not repair this. You know, these are old systems. The technology at the time that was preferred and recommended, both with piping as well as the collection and the pumping stations, just is, you know, was not up to the job in the time duration that we've experienced to date. And, you know, sewer is one of those things that we really have to take care of in the town, and, you know, that was part of the reason for forming an enterprise when we came into 2.5 so that we'd have the fundings. So I encourage the town meeting to support this article.
Okay. Mr. Griffin.
Jack Griffin, 44 Marshall Avenue. My question to Tom is, Mr. Moderator, I think we discussed this at capital budget, and we were told that it was tabled for next year. Had that changed?
I think obviously it has, but
I
if you
don't
can say
ever
why.
This was always prepared to go forward at this town meeting.
Okay.
We need to let the SRF funding know ASAP whether or not we're going to go forward with this, because there's somebody next in line if we don't get it.
Okay.
Follow up on that. We were not asked to vote on this. This was on the capital expenditure list. We did discuss it on the March 8th meeting. I have been unable to get any minutes from that meeting. I don't think you've accepted them yet, but we did discuss this on the 8th of March at the Capital Planning Committee. But I don't believe, Tom, I thought at that time you had said you were tabling it, and then there was a $7 million one after too, I believe. No, if I may, Mr. Moderator,
The $7 million was the second application that we put in for sewer infrastructure replacement, which was a separate application through the SRF program. The $8.1 million was for the pump station rehabilitation, which 2.3 of it was funded by ARPA with the support of the Board of Selectmen, and the balance of the $8.1 million project would be through SRF funding. Nothing's changed since our last meeting.
I'm a little dumbfounded only because I can't recall we ever had a discussion to the point where we went into detail and did our due diligence on this. I believe we were told it was tabled for next year. That's all I have to say. I mean, as it says up there, capital budget's not on there that says capital budget approved this, so we never got the vote on it, I guess. I'm trying to think, Tom.
This has come up several times in this meeting, and I'll just say that collectively, capital and town officials, town boards, there should be something a little more concrete in terms of what's been reviewed and everything else, and I just encourage you all, because we've had a lot of time in this meeting done going back and forth, and there's a lot of, I don't remember, do you remember this, do you remember that, going back and forth between boards, so just...
Well, let me just say this, that thus far, I've been correct on a bunch of them, and this one, being an $8.1 million one, I remember it as being tabled. So it didn't become before capital
I'm not
budget.
taking sides in it. I'm just saying that it seems like there's a little bit of a disconnect.
If it did not come before capital budget, it shouldn't be allowed to be voted on.
It was on the capital budget list, though. As we read the capital budget article, it was on that article. Whether it was recommended or not, it wasn't recommended there, but it was on the capital budget article. So this was in the capital budget article that we just voted on.
If I may, Mr. Moderator, I think maybe some of the confusion might be is that in our explanation, we informed Capital that this was going to be a separate article from the capital articles. But it was on the capital list to go forward. And also, at a previous town meeting, we were given monies to do the preliminary design for this project. So this is all contingent on getting the total funding from SRF and the ARPA funds to go forward.
Okay, thank you.
So what he's saying, it was on a separate list and not on the capital budget request list.
It is on the capital budget list.
It was on the capital budget. I'm going to say that this is a legitimate article to come before town meeting.
Okay. The only other thing I like to say is that with the borrowing, are we using our water or sewer enterprise funds on this?
The funding is to be defrayed by wastewater enterprise funds and further to accept any state and federal grants for the project.
The one thing I might add is that that means that there's a good chance that your wastewater will increase at your residence. Thank you.
Okay. Right microphone.
Malcolm Gale, Nantasket Street. Did I understand you correctly, Tom, that the system will be shut down, be out of service while you're working on that project on Plymouth Ave?
Mr. Reynolds?
No, sir. Actually, we put a bypass in, so and we repaired the force main, so we'll be able to bypass the station while we do the construction.
The other question is, where the sewage discharge was built at the same time, what are we going to run into there?
Mr. Reynolds?
Excuse me, Mr. Moderator, and when you say the discharge, could you explain?
Down in Brant Rock. The discharge plant in Brant Rock was put in at the same time.
Yeah, the outfall, if I may, Mr. Moderator.
Yep.
The outfall, we have been doing some studies on the need to look at maybe some repairs to that. It's a very difficult permitting process because of time frame. The only time they let us go out there is like in February, and February isn't very receptive to small craft trying to dive in the rough seas in the wintertime. So we're restricted. The permitting is very tough, but There's only one manufacturer that actually makes that pipe. So, but we've been monitoring it. We need to get a dive team in here to take another inspection on it, but right now it's in decent shape.
Now, the Plymouth Ave pumping station, with the new pumps going in, will that accommodate coming over the extra usage from Kent Park and Blackmount?
Mr. Moderator, yes, that station is capable to handle any additional flow from those two locations. I'm sorry, Blackmount wouldn't go to Plymouth Ave, that would go to Avon Street.
Mr. Kelly?
Eric Kelly, Peterson Path. Since it's been brought up a couple of times, I'm just wondering, in regards to the expanded sewer system, have there been recent talks in regards to expand the sewer system?
I can't hear you.
Eric Kelly, Peterson Path. It's been brought up that this pumping station is going to serve a possible expansion of sewer system in the Blackmount area and Kent Park. So, I mean, has there been talks recently in regards to expanding the sewer system?
Mr. Reynolds?
Mr. Moderator, there has been studies done in the Blackmount area, we are currently in the capital. We got money to do a master plan, and we're looking at the expansion through that master plan and the cost and everything that's related with expanding.
So are those studies between the master plan available for public viewing?
Mr. Reynolds?
Excuse me, Mr. Moderator, yes, the Blackmount study is available if you're interested in it. We haven't completed the Kent Park study, so once it becomes available, it will be available to the resident.
Who authorized the studies?
It was voted by the board, and it was voted by the Capitol.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shaughnessy?
Bob Shaughnessy, Board of Public Works, 231 Hampstead Way. I urge town meeting to vote for this article for the full amount of $8,100,000 to avoid a public health disaster. We have funds from the feds. We have commitments from the federal government and the state government, which could, if all comes down, would not really impact the sewer rate, as Mr. Reynolds had said earlier. I urge town meeting to vote for it now. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take the woman at the back microphone, and we're going to go to a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'd just like to say to Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Moderator, that there was a study done regarding Kent Park. It cost $500,000 to do the study. It was positive. It was determined that they could take care of Kent Park. I learned this from the town engineer, Ron Procaccino. So you go back and talk with him and you will find out. Thank you.
Okay. Going to go to a vote. This is a 2/3 vote for borrowing. All in favor of Article 8, please raise your hand. All opposed? I declare that that passes by 2/3.
Thank you.
So we are on to our last article, Article 17. And if we can do this whole article in 15 minutes, I make my bet that we could do it in 2 hours.
Okay.
I don't think that's going to happen, but we can hope. Considering it's a 10-part CPC article, I don't think that's going to get anywhere, but I got a set here if you don't have it. Got it?
17, 1, 2, yeah. 17, 7, 10, all of them.
Article 17 is the CPC article. There are 10 parts to this. I'll have Mr. Campbell, who's the chair of the CPC committee, give a brief presentation first, and then we'll do them as they come up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator. As he said, there are articles for us to discuss. I can discuss them briefly, and if there are questions, we do have applicants here. I want to thank the CPC committee, many of the members who are here, and especially Tracy Pomelo, our administrative brains of the operation for us, for all her work throughout the year, as well as input from the other town boards and residents.
Okay. Advisory Board?
Which one do you want this to?
Jim, we got to go through article by article? I mean, I don't... how do
We're going to
you
do
want
article by article. My notes here, that the advisory board voted 8-0 to support all of the articles, so I think that's all we need to say.
We did have 8-0 support for all the articles.
Okay, I'm going to go to the articles in order. So the first article is, it's motion number 1. The Community Preservation Committee moves pursuant to Chapter 44B of the Massachusetts General Laws that the town vote to set aside the sum of $255,420 from fiscal year 2024 revenue for historic reserves. And that's the standard 10%. Pardon me?
Point of order. Sean Kelly, 33 Chandler Drive. I think items 1 through 4 approved last night on the consent agreement.
Yes.
So we have to deal with items 5 through 10.
Right, correct.
We didn't reach what?
When you read the consent agenda,
Oops.
1 to 4.
Okay, I should have read it last night, and I didn't, so it wasn't part of the consent agenda that I read and that we voted on, so we need to vote them. If everybody voted yes on 1 through 4, and we're all good with that, we can just say yes on 1 through 4. So, but let me just do it real quickly here. Motion 1 is for the historic reserves for 255-420. All in favor, raise your hand. This is just a majority vote. Oh, it's a majority vote, yes. I'm sorry. Raise your hand. All opposed? Motion 1 passes. Motion 2 is open space recreation, 10%. Again, 255-420. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? That passes. Motion 3, it's a set aside for affordable housing reserves. Again, 255-420. It's a statutory reserve. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Passes. I might make that 9 o'clock. Motion 4, it's $125,000. This is the annual expenses, administrative expenses line item. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Motion 5 is the sum of $140,000 to continue repairs and restoration of town-owned GIR Hall at 157 Old Main Street, and to meet this appropriation, transfer the sum from CPC Historic Reserves. Discussion, all in favor, raise your hand. I declare motion 5 passes. Motion 6, to appropriate $48,000, and this is an open space and recreation, to fund an update to the town's open space recreation plan, and to meet this appropriation, transfer said fund from CPC Open Space Recreation Reserves. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, I declare that passes. Motion 7, open space recreation, the sum of $136,000 to fund permissible capital improvements at town-owned ball fields, playgrounds, and recreational areas, and to meet this appropriation, transfer said sum from CPC Open Space Recreation Reserves. Said funds to be expended under the direction of the Superintendent of Public Works and the general supervision of the Board of Public Works. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? I declare that passes. Number 8, the sum of $65,000 to fund permissible capital improvements at the Marshfield Hills Playground, and to meet this appropriation, transfer said sum from CPC Open Space Recreation. Said funds to be expended under the direction of the Superintendent of Public Works and the general supervision of the Board of Public Works. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? I declare that passes. Motion 9, $37,000 to fund permissible capital improvements to the tennis courts at Peter Igo Park, and to meet this appropriation, transfer said sum from CPC Open Space Recreation. Again, expended under the direction of the Superintendent of Public Works and the general supervision of the Board of Public Works. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? I declare that passes. And motion 10, the sum of $20,000 to fund permissible capital improvements to the basketball courts at Peter Igo Park, and to meet this appropriation, transfer said sum from CPC Open Space Recreation Reserves, and said funds to be expended under the direction of the Superintendent of Public Works and the general supervision of the Board of Public Works. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? That passes, and we actually,
Thank you.
10 minutes of. You guys did great. So Article 17, I'm going to call one vote on Article 17 in total. All those in favor of Article 17, please raise your hand. All opposed? Thank you. At this point in time, I'll take a motion to dissolve town meeting. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you for showing up on the second night. I know it's not the best of all situations, but it's great to have you here.